What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another New York Giants video. And in this video, I'm going to discuss the release of the 2022 NFL schedule and how it affects the New York Football Giants heading into the 2022 season and make my record prediction for this football team now that we're post-free agency and post-draft. Obviously, some free agents always linger past the draft and get signed late into the offseason. But folks, before I dive more into this, I want to remind you all to check us out on all of our social media platforms on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Big Blue Avenue. Appreciate all the support that we've gotten and the continued generosity that you guys continue to give our channel. So the Giants, when I first looked at the schedule, now there were leaks throughout the course of late Wednesday, early Thursday, and you're buying into some of them, you're not buying into some of them. I just try not to pay attention to anything that's posted out there until we get the official word from the New York Football Giants. Fourth easiest schedule in the National Football League, and that's something to look forward to if you're a Giants fan. Now, in hindsight, in some aspects, it's not so great because a lot of people view this as a rebuilding year, the first year of a new regime. And obviously, the biggest elephant in the room this year is Daniel Jones. And entering his contract year, you want to find out what you really, really have in this guy under a new offensive scheme that I think will benefit him, right? And you want him to go up against some tough opponents, some easy opponents, some moderate opponents. And I think there's a good diversity of opponents in that schedule, but I would have preferred to have seen a slightly more difficult schedule for the Giants to kind of just test Daniel Jones a little bit more. But I do think this schedule is acceptable enough to get the answer on Daniel Jones in 2022. Now, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode here. And the first game, and I'm really excited. License plate guy was talking about this all week on social. Giants going to Nashville week 1 at the Tennessee Titans for a 4:25 p.m. start where they meet with King Henry, who in my opinion is the best running back in the National Football League, best true running back. And I have this game despite, we're still relatively early. Rookie mini camp is beginning today. I don't see the Giants winning this football game. Week 1, this was the number 1 seeded team in the AFC playoffs last year. Now, yes, they did go out in their first playoff matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals, but I think Tennessee, a good head coach in Mike Vrabel, he's experienced. I think he's very underrated. Derrick Henry, outstanding running back. The Giants lost Austin Johnson. Dalvin Tomlinson over a year ago now, and I don't know who's going to be able to stop him on that front. You have Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams. That's great. But, Derrick Henry's a tough animal. So week 1 on the road, I think the Giants offense is still trying to get their feet wet in this new system. I have this marked down as a loss. Now we move on to week 2, and this is the home opener against the Carolina Panthers. Now, one of the first things I saw in this schedule, the Giants have 9 home games this year and 8 away games. Technically only 7 because one of their away games will be played in London. This is the first of a 3-game homestand for the Giants from weeks 2 to 4. And this will feature all of the 5, 6, and 7 overall picks in this year's NFL draft. You have Thibodeau and Neal for the Giants and Ike Ekwonu for the Carolina Panthers. And I think Sam Darnold is the quarterback coming back into his own stadium again. And last year, the Giants had some success against the Carolina Panthers. I have the Giants winning this one. I have them improving to 1-1 on the season. I think Daniel Jones has a really good game. And I think you start to see the offense click a little bit more. I think the defense will get it together much more quickly than the offense. This is a game where Darnold may throw a pick or two. Again, the first 2 matchups, you have Ryan Tannehill and Sam Darnold. Nothing to really get scared about, right? Tannehill, veteran presence with playoff experience, but Sam Darnold does not. So in hindsight, I think the Giants are going to win this football game, and I view it, again, I want to say low-scoring game, but I don't know too much about this offense yet and what to expect because we haven't seen everybody on the field. But, Giants, Panthers, have this one down as a win. Week 3, we play the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football. And as of right now, this is the only primetime game of the 2022 season for the Giants. Crazy, right? Big Blue, not a good football team last year. They went 4-13, so you're not going to get many primetime games. This is the first of 2, however, nationally televised games against the Cowboys this season. Later on in the schedule, they play them on Thanksgiving in Dallas. And usually the Giants start out at Dallas. I'm happy to see them at home against Dallas for once to start off. And again, Dallas, I do think they got worse throughout the course of the offseason. They lost La'el Collins. I don't like their interior line. They lost Connor Williams as well. He's not very good in my opinion. Amari Cooper, gone. Some could argue that Tony Pollard is more productive than Ezekiel Elliott, and their overpaid quarterback in Dak Prescott. So with all that being said, though, I like what the Cowboys have on defense a lot. And again, this is just a tough divisional matchup. It's early in the year against, a lot of new guys on this team. It's a young team. I'm going to have this one marked down as a loss, unfortunately. And I have the Giants dropping to 1-2 on the year. Now, week 4 at home against the Chicago Bears. The Giants have lost the last 2 matchups against the Bears. And, quite frankly, the Bears, their bread and butter in that game was David Montgomery, right? Really good running back. You can find the holes. Again, the Bears' offensive line is not great. Justin Fields is a question mark entering year number 2. They did improve a little bit. Their offense, they got Velus Jones Jr. in the draft, Cole Kmet entering his, I think it's second or third year now. And, the offensive line, Tevin Jenkins, they did lose James Daniels, but, I don't think the Bears have a necessarily bad football team. I just don't think they're very good, and the competition in their division now is improving. So I do see the Giants winning this game, finally answering the puzzle against the Chicago Bears. Now, there are some concerns on this defense with Roquan Smith, of course, really good linebacker. I'm not sure what the situation is with Robert Quinn. He might be off the team. I'm not too sure what happened with Robert Quinn. I think he's still there, but right now, the Chicago Bears, they have a lot on defense, but I think, again, with this new coaching staff and the new Giants offense, I think if Fields is getting blitzed from all different angles, again, this is a quarterback that's an unproven, right? So I think the Giants are able to take advantage of the young quarterback situation. Again, when the Giants played the Bears last year, they didn't face Justin Fields. They faced Andy Dalton. So, I think it'll benefit the Giants to go up against a younger quarterback, confuse him a little bit, throw some disguise blitzes in there. You have Kayvon Thibodeau. You have Azeez Ojulari. You have Xavier McKinney on the back end. So I think the Giants are going to win this football game. And again, their receiving core doesn't really scare me that much. They did lose Allen Robinson. Now, I have the Giants at 2-2, heading to their Week 5 game against the Green Bay Packers in London. 9:30 a.m. start across the pond. Make sure you're up early for this game. Set your alarm early. I know mine will be set for like 6 a.m. that day. The Giants scored big here, avoiding the trip to Lambeau Field. Again, it was rumored either the Jaguars or the Packers would be the matchup in London. And if you remember, the Giants were the first game ever to be played in London back in 2007. They played the Miami Dolphins there. And I think playing Green Bay in a neutral site gives them an advantage, but I do have this marked down as a loss. I know there's a lot of Giants fans in London. The English love their American football. And again, this is a game where, it's early in the year. It's against a good football team, really good football team. I understand they've lost Devontae Adams, but they did bring back good key pieces to their defense. They still have Devondre Campbell on the linebacking core, Rashawn Gary, Jair Alexander. There's a lot to be worried about when going up against that Packers defense. I think they're underrated. Who's going to stop the duo of Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon? Again, the Giants really don't have an answer at that nose tackle position right now. And quite frankly, the Packers, I think their line got a little better as well. So we'll see. I think the Giants are going to be very competitive in games this year. I think this is one where they will be competitive because when they play good teams, they usually, overperform as of previous years. But we'll see what happens, right? We really can't make the most educated prediction on these games until the season officially starts. But, I like the fact that they have the Packers early on in the year at a neutral site. However, they'll be 2-3. Week 6, back at home against the Baltimore Ravens, a team the Giants historically struggle against. They're going up against Lamar Jackson, really good running backs in the backfield. They did lose Hollywood Brown, but they still got Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay, James Prochet, Mark Andrews. Most importantly, they drafted 2 outstanding tight ends in Charlie Kolar and Isaiah Likely. Their offense is lethal. Their offensive line is good. They got Ronnie Stanley. They got Kevin Zeitler, the Kevin Zeitler revenge game, I guess you could call it. Baltimore's winning this football game. And Tyler Linderbaum up front as their starting center. I mean, that's a tall order. So, and that Ravens defense, yes, Wink Martindale, former Ravens defensive coordinator, there could be some similarities there. Wink could kind of get a read on what the Ravens are trying to do defensively, help out the Giants offense throughout the course of the week. I think it'll be a better performance from the Giants offense than it was 2 years ago when they played the Ravens. But I don't see this as a win. So I have the Giants dropping to 2-4 through their first 6 games of the year. And now from week 7 through 11, this is where the schedule gets relatively easy. I think it's the easiest throughout the year. Now, week 7 at Jacksonville. This will not be the same Jaguars team as you saw last year. They're not going to be as bad. This is not going to be a shoe-in game like a lot of Giants fans will think. When you have team bias as a Giants fan, you're automatically going to mark this as a win. I'm not going to automatically mark this as a win. That doesn't mean I won't. What I'm saying is Jacksonville improved on a lot of phases this offseason, right? Again, they got Trayvon Walker to add to their defense. That is a really, really good piece. They lost Miles Jack, but Trevor Lawrence in year number 2 at Jacksonville, this is a tough place to play. Remember, last time the Giants played the Jaguars, they lost. So, again, we saw the Bills lose in Jacksonville last year 9-6. That was a terrible, terrible performance by them offensively. Evan Ingram, former Giant, tight end for the Jaguars now, Evan Ingram revenge game. And, yes, this does begin a 4-game stretch against 4 of the worst teams in the league. But if you have the Giants winning all 4 of these games, I do think it's somewhat, not smart to predict wins for all 4 of these games because you're going to lose a game that you're not going to expect. That's how the NFL is. That's what usually happens. But here, I have the Giants surviving, beating the Jacksonville Jaguars, and improving to 3-4 on the season. When I looked at these 4 easy games, I had to pick one of them as a loss, and this was second on my list. But again, I don't think, Travis Etienne, huge factor. They didn't have him last year. Christian Kirk is now on the football team. They have some good weapons. So Giants need to look out in this football game. It's going to be a lot closer than anticipated. Giants and Jaguars go down to the wire, but I ultimately think the Giants come away with a victory, improving to 3-4. Week 8, the Giants are at the Seattle Seahawks. Remember, last time the Giants played at Seattle was 2 years ago, where Patrick Graham broke Seattle. That was with Russell Wilson at quarterback. Now, when I look at the Seahawks, this is primed to be a matchup of 2 quarterbacks of the 2019 draft class in Daniel Jones and Drew Lock, right? Drew Lock is projected to be their starting quarterback, even though right now Pete Carroll came out and said that Geno Smith is QB1. I don't think that's going to last. Now, you still have Chris Carson, TJ Lockett. Who knows what the situation is with DK Metcalf, and I meant to say Tyler Lockett. But again, Seattle defensively, not a good football team. They did draft Charles Cross, which I like, but majority of their offensive line is still in shambles. I have the Giants winning this football game. Seattle's a team that needs to rebuild, and they still have Pete Carroll there. I don't see Seattle coming away. I think this is a game where Wink Martindale and the defense has an outstanding game. They have an outstanding game, and Saquon Barkley has a good game. The Giants are able to get the ball to their wide receivers. Seattle, not the best corners in the league either. So I have the Giants winning, and now have the Giants at 4-4. So very, very interesting. Week 9 is the bye. So you get some momentum going into the bye week. Now, halfway through the schedule, get to the second half in a moment. But first, I want to remind you all to go try out our sponsor, BetUS. If you're into sports betting, this is the place to go. You can sign up with our promo code below at Join125. Get a 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,500. You can bet on the go, anywhere, anytime, with America's #1 favorite sports book. That is BetUS, where the game begins. Now, Giants are 4-4, coming out of the bye on a 2-game winning streak against 2 weaker opponents in the NFL. Week 10, they host the Houston Texans, a Lovie Smith-led team. Davis Mills, 3rd-round pick in last year's draft, or 2nd or 3rd round, whatever it was. And, he was very impressive at times last year. I think Houston overachieved a little bit. And, I like what they did in the draft. They got Derek Stingley, a good cornerback. And I also think they got Kendrick Green to beef up their offensive line a little bit out of Texas A&M. So, again, I don't necessarily think this is going to be an easy game for the Giants. If this was on the road, I might have this marked down as a loss. I know, you may drop your jaw for me hearing that, but look, Giants are not going to win every game against all these easy teams. But since the Giants are at home, not really sold on the Texans. I have the Giants winning this game, and now I have the Giants on a 3-game winning streak, improving to 5-4 on the football season. Now, we get into week 11, and I know a lot of people are going to be very unhappy with this, but I have the Giants losing to the Detroit Lions. Yes, you heard that correctly. I like what Dan Campbell has done with his team this offseason. You have Aiden Hutchinson, a really good edge rusher going up against guys like Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal. I'm happy we got those 2 bookend tackles for us, but Jacksonville improved as a unit offensively. I mean, you got TJ Hawkinson, you got Jamison Williams to pair along with Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift, very elusive in the backfield. And, Jared Goff, I talk to a lot of people every day, and the media hates Jared Goff, and people who watch the media also think Jared Goff stinks. He's not a good quarterback. Well, remember, Jared Goff played in the Super Bowl. He played in the Super Bowl. I'm not saying Jared Goff is a great quarterback, but I think he's an average quarterback. I think he's a guy that can win your team football games. I don't think he necessarily has to be replaced unless you look at next year's draft class and say, oh, I think one of these guys might be better than Jared Goff. Then you go ahead and take that chance. But, Jared Goff, he's not losing his starting job this year. He's going to be the quarterback. I think he's going to have, an average to above average season maybe. And I think he surprises Giants fans. He has a good game in this game, and the Detroit Lions will defeat the New York Football Giants, which, pains me to say as a Giants fan, but unfortunately I have the Giants losing, and that snaps the 3-game winning streak. Again, you can't have these all marked at wins. If you have these all marked at wins, I think you're going to be sadly disappointed. That's just how the NFL is. And I believe that has me at 5-5, right? 5-5. Heading into week 12 against the Cowboys at Dallas on Thanksgiving Day, 4:30 p.m. start. The Giants last played on Thanksgiving in 2017 against the Washington Redskins. And again, Giants historically, they don't play much on Thanksgiving. There's not much of a sample size to judge off of here. And I think Dallas at home on Thanksgiving, it's going to be a tall order for the Giants. I want the Giants to at least split against the Cowboys this year. I think there's a chance they could. I think that week 3 game could be a dark horse game that the Giants could win. But I did have that marked down as a loss here. Unfortunately, I also have it marked down as a loss. I think on the short week, there's still a lot lingering from the Detroit loss. You have to travel across the country to Texas. I don't see the Giants winning this football game. I don't. Too short of a week, not much practice time. The team is ailing from the Detroit loss, and they dropped to 5-6. Now, week 13, Giants are back at home against the Washington Commanders. 1 p.m. start, early game, benefits Daniel Jones. What also benefits Jones is that he's really good playing against Washington. Quite frankly, I think the Giants are going to win this football game. They have the extended break. This is kind of like almost the second bye week. You have a week and a half off to prepare for these guys coming off back-to-back losses. And I think the Giants are going to be jacked up. They're going to be fired up. They're going to want to win a football game in front of their home crowd. 2 disappointing losses to the Lions and the Cowboys. The Giants, they come back firing. And quite frankly, I think the Giants will improve to 6-6 on the season right here. Carson Wentz, the Giants, I don't know about Carson Wentz. I mean, he did not look good last year against the Colts. There's a reason why he's bounced around from team to team to team the last 2 years. This is the third team he's been on in the last 2 to 3 years now. So interesting to see what will come of this game. But Washington does have some dynamic weapons now to add to their receiving room. They have Scary Terry. They have Jahan Dotson. They also have De'Ami Brown, Logan Thomas as well. So, Washington, they're not a sleepaway football team. They have a decent O-line as well. So I think it's going to be a tight game as always, but I think the Giants sneak away with a win. Week 14 at home against the Philadelphia Eagles. All of a sudden, they went from the doghouse of the NFC East to the top of the NFC East in predictions for the 2022 season. Now, again, Philadelphia Eagles, they brought in a lot for Jalen Hurts. They traded for A.J. Brown. They went out. They drafted Devontae Smith in 2021. They still have Dallas Goedert. Jason Kelsey is coming back. They drafted Cam Jurgens in the second round, future center for the football team. Landon Dickerson, hopefully for them, is healthy this year. You have a good, solid left tackle in Jordan Mailata, and the defense is good. That second cornerback position is still, a question mark, but they got Jordan Davis in the draft to pair alongside Fletcher Cox, and you still have Milton Williams. That is a good interior for Philadelphia. And ultimately, I do think the Giants lose this football game at home to the Philadelphia Eagles. It's tough. These divisional games, they're very, very difficult, and I think the Giants are going to lose this football game. Not by much, but I think it's going to be close, and the Eagles come away with a win. Week 15 at Washington. Again, time is TBD for this game. I have the Giants splitting against Washington this year. I know a lot of Giants fans want me to have 2 wins against Washington, but you have to be realistic. This team is young. We don't know what it's going to be like. We have not seen this team on the football field yet this season. It's only middle of May, guys. I don't have the Giants winning this football game. I can't see us sweeping an NFC East opponent this season. I'm sorry. This football team is too young. They're too inexperienced. It's a new and young coaching staff. I have the Giants losing to Washington. I am afraid with what the secondary can do against Dotson and McLaurin. I think after watching the film from the first game 2 weeks ago, Washington is able to come back and have a successful game, and Carson Wentz looks pretty good. So, Week 16, Christmas Eve against the Minnesota Vikings. By the way, the Giants are now 6-8. At Minnesota, 1 p.m. start. Dalvin Tomlinson, Ryan Connolly, a couple of former Giants on the Vikings roster. I have the Vikings making the playoffs this year. At Minnesota, the Giants don't play well at Minnesota. In fact, I can't tell you the last time the Giants defeated the Minnesota Vikings. So I don't have the Giants winning this football game. I now have the Giants on a 3-game losing streak, dropping to 6-9. With this loss to the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think Daniel Jones has his best game, but I think he does enough to keep the Giants around in this game. I don't necessarily see a game on the schedule where the Giants are like, oh my God, we're going to get blown out this year. I don't see that. If there's one game in particular that strikes, potential concern for that, it's the Green Bay game in London, and potentially the first game of the year at Tennessee. But all in all, I think the Giants are going to be competitive in this game, but they're not going to do enough to win. I think the Vikings are actually going to compete with Green Bay for the NFC North title this season. I think the Vikings are going to surprise a lot of people. Roster-wise, they're very, very good. Giants are now 6-9. Heading into the new year, you want to start off the new year right against the Indianapolis Colts and Matt Ryan. Again, Matt Ryan has not been very successful playing football at MetLife Stadium. Again, that 24-2 playoff loss last year, however, the Falcons did beat the Giants at MetLife on Eli Manning Day. Now he's an Indianapolis Colt. I think the Colts are a much better team. Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, who's going to stop him? The additions of Alec Pierce and Bernard Ryman to the offense. The Colts did lose Mark Lewinsky to the Giants, so that'll be interesting. Maybe Lewinsky will have some film or some details to share with the O-line heading into this game on New Year's Day, but I have this marked as a loss again, unfortunately. I know this doesn't look good for the Giants. Daniel Jones, a 4-game losing streak in the month of December, but I'm trying to be realistic, guys. Have the Giants falling to 6-10. This is another game that could potentially go heavily in the Colts' favor, but I think the Giants, they're seasoned enough defensively to keep up with this football team. And I do think the offense will be improved this season. I think we're going to see a few touchdowns out of Kenny Golladay. I'd be shocked if Golladay has south of 5 touchdowns this season. I would be shocked. Last game of the season, and we're heading down to Philadelphia, a place we haven't won since 2013. Philadelphia Eagles have a lot on the line, and this is where the Giants could potentially play spoiler, right? But fortunately, the Eagles have a stacked roster this year. We're 6-10. This could be potentially Daniel Jones's final game as a New York Giant. Daniel Jones has the best game of his Giants career, and the Giants win this football game in Philadelphia to beat the Eagles to finish the season with a 7-10 record. I don't see the Giants ending the season on a 5-game losing streak. I just don't see it. Unfortunately, with the way the schedule pans out, it's tough for me to say you're going to beat Washington twice within 3 weeks. I'm more confident about the Giants playing the Eagles the second time this year than the first time, even though that means traveling to Philly. Some people may have a different opinion, saying that the Giants don't do well in Philly, which they don't. You are correct. But things don't last forever. These streaks don't last forever. And it almost came to an end 2 years ago. I think it's going to end this year. And then the Colts and the Vikings, I don't see wins there. Those are 2 playoff teams in 2022. So, final record for the Giants is 7 wins and 10 losses for the 2022 season. My schedule takeaways. So we have the 3-game homestand in weeks 2 to 4. The Giants only have 2 nationally televised games this year, and they're both against the Dallas Cowboys. Only 1 primetime game. They have a London game, 5 divisional games in the final 7 weeks. The Giants will also be playing 9 home games for the first time since their inaugural season in 1925. Giants play 2 divisions they play this year are the NFC North and the AFC South. Only 6 games on the schedule against 2021 playoff teams. 4 of them are against Dallas and Philly. So that's very, very interesting. The other 2 are against Tennessee and Green Bay, if you were wondering. And this is the 4th straight year the Giants don't get a Sunday night football game, and rightfully so. Final record of 7-10 for Big Blue. This is a step in the right direction. Giants will have some good draft capital heading into 2023. A lot of decisions to make, in particular with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. My prediction ultimately is that only one of the 2 will stay, although I think both are going to prove that they're worthy to stay this season. This is a make it or break it year for both of these young players. And with the financial situation of the Giants, I don't think they're keeping both, unfortunately. They could decide to franchise tag Daniel Jones. They could decide to extend Saquon Barkley, which I don't think would be the right move, but it is a possibility. I wish nothing for the best for those 2 this season. I think this is a huge question mark that finally gets answered this year with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. So 7 wins and 10 losses for the Giants in the 2022 season. They missed the playoffs, but you are going to want to have your eyes glued to the television every game this upcoming season, because there's one thing for sure. the Giants are going to be competitive in just about every single football game, in my opinion. Folks, if you like what you watch, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Big Blue Avenue. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, or Instagram and Twitter at Big Blue Avenue. Appreciate all the support that we've gotten. And without further ado, let's go Big Blue.